right, thank you so much for joining us tonight. WEGO Health invited us here tonight for their second monthly roundtable event to discuss all things health, including this month's international holiday, World Rare Disease Day, which is happening this Friday, February 28th. My name is Ilana Jacqueline. I'm the managing editor of the blog and patient community over at the Global Genes Project. I'm also a health blogger with my own site, letsfeelbetter.com. With me tonight are some incredible health advocates and friends of mine, including PKU advocate and filmmaker Kevin Alexander, Purple Project president and Crohn's patient Kelly Crabb, as well as the author of the well-known story, The Spoon Theory, Miserandino. I know I butchered your name on Twitter, so now I don't want to butcher it on here.
Christine Miserandino.
Miserandino, okay. Thanks so much for being here with me tonight, guys. Danielle, if you want to
jump in, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us, and thank you, Ilana, for hosting this second episode. And so I'm the community recruitment manager at WEGO Health, and I get to do all of the fun community projects that we do internally and externally at WEGO Health. And so I've been working on Google Plus for about a year now, and I manage this channel as well for the organization. And we've been trying to find more ways to interact with the community and also have you guys get even more of a platform to communicate with each other and with everyone else in the community. And so I'm going to jump on now, and then at the end of the episode to let you know that we're here and we want to do even more projects with you. And you can reach us at community@wegohealth.com. And let us know what you think about this episode, the topics, if you want to get involved with the WEGO Health Roundtables on Google+, or if there's other projects you think you might be a great fit for. I also wanted to take a moment to say thank you to Mark Clifford, who's a diabetes health activist and has done a lot of work with WEGO Health and our Google+ page. He's actually in the hospital right now, but we're hoping he'll be out soon and wish him a speedy recovery. And I also wanted to say a special thank you to Kelly, Kevin, and Christine for making time tonight to be with us. And I know, Christine, you have a crazy busy schedule and you're probably pretty tired, so we really appreciate the time you took to be part of this. And Ilana, you do an amazing job prepping for this and have some great topics. So I'm just going to sit back and interact like the rest of our viewers on YouTube. And then I'll jump back in 5 minutes later towards the end, and I'll just give you a little more information. So I'll let you guys take it from here.
Yeah. All right. Think we're okay. All right. So anyway, just want to thank everyone again for tuning in. Now let's learn a little bit more about our panelists. Kevin, should we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about what PKU is? Because I'm not sure if all of our viewers will be familiar since it is a rare disease.
Yeah, PKU stands for phenylketonuria. It's a long word I've known how to spell all my life because PKU is actually diagnosed at birth through newborn screening. Every child when they're born in the United States across the world are tested for a variety of different genetic or rare diseases. PKU is one of those diseases, and what it practically means is that I can't tolerate, I can't eat high levels of protein. And so I have to eat a kind of a special low-protein diet and some other medicines and everything. And so basically I've never had a steak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I don't know what I'm missing, so I can't miss it.
So tell us a little bit about what you do, because you're a filmmaker and you're an advocate, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my background professionally was I used to work in television news, and for years had wanted to do some sort of PKU-related project, but just never felt like the time was right. And a few years ago, I finally, the timing just felt right, and I produced this film called My PKU Life. And it's a 10-minute film, and I just tell my story about, you know, an introduction of what PKU is and a little bit about my life. And the film just got a lot more views than I ever anticipated. And since then, I've just become an active advocate in the PKU community, newborn screening, rare diseases in general. And I have a website now called pkulife.tv where I produce videos there.
Awesome. All right, great. I think we're very lucky to have you as an advocate in the community, and I'm excited you're here tonight. So Kelly, what about you? Can you tell us a little bit about your disease and what the Purple Project is?
Sure. I live with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed at age 17, originally with Crohn's, and then colitis a few years later with additional scans and scopes. There's a lot of symptoms to kind of go around with Crohn's and colitis that fall under the IBD category. But basically a lot of autoimmune disorders. It's not just the generalized statement that it's just a stomach disease. It doesn't just involve diarrhea. There's a lot of autoimmune aspects to it. So just kind of trying to gain just a general knowledge of the public and just raise awareness and have a grasp of general public education and kind of get a feel that, I mean, I read a statistic yesterday, a new one, that 88 people are diagnosed with IBD per day in 2014. So it's just a really scary statistic that it used to actually be a rare disease. So it's come a lot further with technology and diagnostic testing, but unfortunately I live with both, so it's just kind of a fight, you know, struggling every day with just immune disorder in general.
So you deal with it with exercise, actually, which I think is very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, your blog and your exercising and what that's about?
Sure. I started my blog. It's called Purple Project, and it's my website is listed, kellyontherun.com. I started it about 6 months ago. I started training for a half marathon that I will be running in Chicago the first weekend in June with Team Challenge through CCFA. My struggles with IBD really do, they seem affected to be more so when I am exercising and through physical activity besides stress. So anytime I'm running, I find that my greatest asset to me that I can be training with is actually through intervals. If I do need to use the bathroom, if I'm feeling nauseous or anything, intervals seem to work the best for me. So from now until June, I'm raising money for CCFA. My goal is $2,600 as of right now. And actually, just an hour ago, I was told that I won a $1,000 gift certificate towards my goal, so I'll be increasing that $1,000 as well. So
awesome.
Really excited.
Congratulations!
Yeah, really excited about the project. You know, we're not even just raising funds; we're raising just general public knowledge and awareness to end the stigma of such an embarrassing disease. You know, it's something that I live with every day, and I'm not embarrassed of it, and I talk about it, you know, very openly because I think that it should be talked about openly.
I agree. Christine, I'm so excited to have you on here. I read The Spoon Theory, like, you know, a million years ago when I was first diagnosed, and I think it's just, like, if you haven't read it, it's definitely something to Google and read. It is a great metaphor for how to describe chronic illness. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started advocating and what you're doing now?
Well, again, my name is Christine Miserandino, and I was diagnosed with lupus when I was about 16, and I'm 36 now, so I'm a professional patient. And like most of us with autoimmune illness, lupus never comes to the party alone. Eventually, over time, it brought fibromyalgia and arthritis, and it kind of brings some of its nasty friends with it. So I've learned to live with different aspects of lupus being my primary illness, but of course all these little illnesses and side effects of medications and all these fun things as well. And I found that no one was talking about lupus. It was kind of hush-hush. No one talked about anything years ago. And I actually had a doctor say, well, you have a pre-lupus condition. I wanted to know if that was like half pregnant. So they, at the time, just no one kind of talked about things. And if anyone knows me, if there's silence, I will scream. I will talk. I will be the voice. So I decided that I needed to kind of get loud and get heard. So I started the website, butyoudon'tlook.sick.com. And the reason why I started that is I actually went to the High School of Performing Arts in New York City, and I was a dance and drama major. And before I was diagnosed, I would constantly hear, everybody now, but you don't look sick. So that obviously became the title of what I thought was going to be a blog literally for 10, 20 people at the time. I thought it was going to be the easy way to update, let's say, family and friends on, the goings of my illness. And now it boggles my mind when you get forwarded your own article. That's how you know it's, grown. But yeah, now on Facebook, the fan page is over 105,000 likes.
Wow.
And now the spoon theory has been translated into 6 different languages. And now it's not just about lupus. It used to be just accepted or used by this lupus community. But really, it's about making choices. And there's a line from the spoon theory that says, you know, the luxury of a life without choice. And that's something that the healthy have that those of us living with a chronic condition, you know, usually don't have. And I think that all of a sudden, the spoony message spread, and now arthritis, and you know, Crohn's, and you know, all these fibro and MS and all these other illnesses started to kind of jump on the spoony bandwagon, simply because it became an easy, simple way to explain to family and friends that thought process that we need to go through that they don't. And it seems simple. It seems like a spoon. How is a spoon going to change the world? But apparently it's starting to. So crazier things have happened. I've been blessed that I've been able to do some film and TV and magazine, and basically I will speak anywhere and do anything if it helps one person have a better experience at their doctors or living their life than I did in the beginning.
Thank you. And you know, I just think it's so interesting that spoony and spoons have become like, it's part of the language now. It's funny, but whenever, you know, if I go to a support group or if I'm talking to new patients, everyone is like, I'm out of spoons, I gotta go. You know, guys, it's part of the language now, which is...
I wish I had a spoon in my backdrop, Christine. That's amazing.
That actually was a gift. This enormous spoon, this actually was a gift from, there's a girl online on Twitter, Carly. Hi, Carly, if you're online. She came to a conference that I was speaking at, and she has Crohn's. And I was speaking at a lupus conference. But she still came to see me because the message of being an empowered patient was the same. And her and her mother, this is one of my proudest but most emotional, most beautiful moments, was when her and her mother presented me with this spoon. And let me see, wait. It says for the spoon theory, which stirred long overdue understanding of the daily energy level required to battle chronic illness. And I cried like a baby. And then I had to figure out how to get this thing home to New York. But probably, I get spoon gifts a lot from all over the country. And, you know, like those travel spoons and things like that.
Yeah.
But this one definitely is capturing.
Well, that's really cute. I love that.
And so for anyone on Twitter, though, the hashtag Spoonie, if you think you're a Spoonie, you are a Spoonie. I don't, you know, if you think it could help you, then welcome to the family. There's no criteria except to want to feel loved and to network about being a better patient. I don't care what you got, come on down.
And, you know, I like that it's all about, the story when you read it, it's all about choices and making choices of, you know, what you choose to spend your energy on. So, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. I also just wanted to introduce myself a little bit to that I'm a POTS, which is partial orthostatic tachycardia syndrome patient, as well as a primary immune deficiency disease patient. And I'm kind of still in the diagnostic odyssey of trying to piece it all together and going through genome sequencing and everything. So I really understand, you know, patient struggles, and I work at the Global Genes Project, which is an international rare disease nonprofit, and I manage the patient blog. So, and we're always looking for patients to contribute their stories and share whether your disease is rare, semi-rare, ultra-rare. You know, we like to hear it, and we like to be able to connect patients. Anyway, so let's take a look at some of the recent health articles that are causing a stir. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to hear about this, but there is this drug that recently came out called Narcan. and it's a rescue remedy, basically, for overdoses. And there's a controversy right now where the government, some people are saying they don't want it to be released because they feel it will enable addicts. But this is really like, I think it's like a nasal pump that you can spray into an addict when they've overdosed, and it helps bring them back. But they're not sure if they want to put this on the market. They're not sure if it's going to be something that enables addicts and gives them the opportunity to do this. What do you guys think about that? Kevin, what do you think? Is this something that would be something you think is good to have on the market?
To be honest with you, I haven't thought about it a whole lot yet, because it's something that I haven't personally had to experience yet. But I don't know. Where's the article? Because I would like to read it.
It's on MSNBC. I'll post the link on my Twitter after this, but it's Rachel Maddow, and it's talking about Narcan, which is NARCAN.
Okay.
What about you, Kelly? Did you have time to take a look at that article?
I think it's really interesting that you had mentioned the enabling factor of it. I'm not really sure the entire chemical makeup of it and kind of what drugs it would reverse the side effects of the overdose, but I think you make a good point that it would. I mean, I can see it both ways, to be honest with you, but I think it would make a lot of people, it would give them reason to maybe continue their drug use, to be honest with you.
Okay, and what do you think, Christine?
I did see the article, and as we're kind of all sharing, it's very difficult because I can see both stances. If someone is in recovery or dealing with addiction, that could be a lifesaver on one hand, and on the other hand, I can see how it can be abused, unfortunately. And also, as people who do have chronic illness and do have pain, it's a very fine line between, the abuse of medication, and we need to accept the fact that there are people who have health issues who do need pain medication, but at the same time, the risk and the dangers of addiction are there. So I think it's a very touchy topic, and I also think that there are pros and cons to both sides that are so strong and so important. So I'm kind of torn.
We're seeing a lot of news and discussion about medical marijuana. It's something we discussed last month in the WEGO Health Roundtable. And so this is it's kind of another thing where we're trying to decide which drugs to let on the market. And I don't know. I find it interesting. I found it interesting that there's a medication that's produced from marijuana that can be helpful to children to stop having seizures, and it's not being allowed on the market, or it's only in certain states. And now this, I'm of the feeling that if you've got one medication out there, you should have the other. And I think this is actually a great thing. I mean, I feel like if we have the technology, if we have the advancement in science to go there and to use it, we should. It should be there. So I don't know if that resonates with any of you. Anyway, so maybe we'll move on to the next story. So have you guys heard about Boston Children's Hospital and the patient, I think her name is Justine, with mitochondrial disease, who has been her parents had the custody of her taken away, and she was put in a psych ward of the hospital. And I think we're still getting bits and pieces of the story. But Christine, have you heard about this story, and what do you think of it so far?
Well, first of all, I do think that we're getting bits and pieces of the story. And let's face facts, anything that it looks dramatic for media is going to make great news. So I think it's unfortunate that someone's personal struggle and tragedy is making news, because to me that should be a very personal situation. I would definitely not want to be in that situation where my life is being put all over the news, especially when a lot of that I've seen on blogs or Twitter, people are putting out opinions based on very little fact. So I don't even think I can speak on it fairly.
I think my bottom line, I guess the concept that I'm thinking of is, I think all of us panelists, through diagnosis and, you know, just going through the stages of the testing and the trials and the emergency room visits that you visit and the specialists that you see, everybody's got a certain story that they were looked down upon at one time, and they're imagining. I mean, we're told a million different things by doctors, but we know that something's definitely wrong inside of us. You know, we know our bodies. They're our own temples, and we know when something is going wrong. So I think this is just an excellent example of how somebody with unfortunate chronic illness, things can be spiraled down, and I don't know all of the details, but this is one example of the things that happen to people with chronic disease, and I can see exactly where they're coming from and how it's led to being indefinitely detained. Yeah. People just don't take certain things seriously, and I can't attest for every single emergency room, but there's just a lot of things that are turned away, unfortunately, and you know, we're seen as mental cases, and sometimes when it's not treatable and diagnosable in the first couple months. It took me at least 3 to 5 good months before I had an actual diagnosis written on paper, and before that I was in emergency room countless amount of times on my deathbed, and I was still not taken seriously.
I agree that there are so many instances, whether you have a rare disease or even, you know, something a little more common, that everyone with a chronic illness has been told one time or another, you're a mental case. You're doing this for attention, or you're, and you know, as someone who has been chronically ill since birth, and you know, I've been diagnosed with these 2 diseases. I went to a doctor the other day who told me, you're not sick, you're faking it, and it's just, it's incredible. It's incredible, and it's incredible, you know, that this girl who, she was diagnosed with a form of mitochondrial disease, and went into the hospital, and they're saying, this is as reported, and they're saying that they, you know, stripped her basically of that diagnosis and labeled her as, you know, as a mental patient. I think that's it's very scary that that's a possibility for patients nowadays. That's scary.
But I think if I had $1 for every time any of us heard it's all in your head, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because, you know, with my condition with PKU, it's screened at, you know, birth, and I was detected and I was diagnosed at birth, and I never had to have that diagnosis struggle like so many people do. But what's very interesting, I may have a rare disease, but my wife actually has celiac disease. And so back in 2007, that was when she was actually diagnosed. And there was a period of time where we were going to the doctor, and it was that same story of people telling her, it's all in your head, it's all in your head. And I'm sitting there thinking, she just had a seizure? That's not in her head. Something's wrong. And it's just, you know, it was amazing to me because up until that time, I had personally always had very positive experiences with any doctor. I'd never had a negative experience. You know, I have a great team at Tulane Medical University. That's the genetics people there that I have to go to for my treatment on the opposite side of the state. But, and I, you know, all of my doctors were great growing up. But this was an experience that was brand new for me because suddenly we're taking her to the doctor and something's seriously wrong and we can't get an answer, and they're just looking at her saying, you're making it up. And fortunately for us, she got the diagnosis, and she's been doing well since then.
It's kind of ironic that, I mean, a teen to begin with, but it's kind of ironic that somebody actually ends up in a psych ward when you're told by so many doctors that eventually you begin to think that you're crazy yourself because you know that something's wrong, but you're being told that nothing's wrong with you and they can't find anything wrong with you. So eventually you begin to think it yourself too. I can see how a lot of people end up with anxiety and depression, and after being told so many different answers and not being told anything at all, there's clearly something relatable to that.
So let me ask you guys, so like I said, I was in this situation the other day where I was seeing a well-respected doctor. I already had my diagnosis. I'm digging a little deeper, you know, and he basically gave me that speech that, you know, it's all in your head, you need to relax, you know, it's the anxiety, and I'm like, I have adhesions growing in my stomach without having surgery prior to that. Like, you can't make this stuff up. What do you say? What advice would you give to patients who are in that exam room having this conversation with their doctor? What do we tell them? Or do we tell them anything, or do we just leave? Christine, what do you think?
I think that, first of all, it's very important to have an advocate or someone with you, whether that be a family member or a friend, because when you're in that situation, you're too emotionally involved. So once a doctor has now negated your feelings, you're not as strong to stick up for yourself. Whereas the person with you might be able to ask the better question or kind of be a little bit more direct. And I think that having someone with you, no matter what age you are, is very, very important. I would say that that's step one.
Absolutely.
I definitely agree. I think that having somebody with you, if that's a possibility, or if you feel comfortable with that, that's great, depending on your age and your comfort level and whatnot. But you know, it took me a long time to advocate for myself and to learn that I need to stand my ground. And it came to a point with, you know, 1 or 2 doctors that it was just time for me to part with them, unfortunately. Kind of a blessing in disguise that I had to change insurances over the past month or so, because I didn't have the same level of connection that I wanted to have with my GI, and I'm taking it as a positive message, and I'm really hoping for good news this time, and that I can agree with my doctor to come to terms with a plan that I want and that I agree with as well, because I think that's the most important thing, to have a great relationship with your GI. You know, whether they have good bedside manner, whether it's a GI or a rheumatologist, you need to have a rapport built with them, and you need to establish a relationship and be able to trust them and communicate openly with them, because nobody else is going to advocate for you in that room except for yourself.
Yeah. I think all of us can identify with the doctor breakup. Yes. The pressure of when to break up with your doctor, how, when is it right, the feelings of I've been with this doctor so long, you know, and the feelings of starting fresh and new with someone new and having them learn your whole history, and the dynamics of switching doctors. But the most important thing is you as a patient. So if you are uncomfortable, or you do not feel empowered or believed or part of your medical team, then it is time to break up. You know, you need a doctor who you feel is out for your best interest and believes in you.
Absolutely. Now, Kevin, on that subject, you know, I know you said this has happened with your wife. What did you say to her, and how can we be supportive as, you know, as partners of patients or as caregivers when a situation like that happens, where they're, you know, they're at a point where they're continuing to be told, you know, that what's happening to them is not happening to them?
I mean, I just, you know, tried to reassure her that every time that somebody told her it's all in your head, I just said, no, it's not. Because, like you said, I forget who it was that said this tonight, but eventually you do start believing that or questioning that. And so I would just constantly reinforce and tell her, okay, it's not in your head. We just need to not give up. Because we went through a phase of just searching for any doctor who might be willing, if they didn't know, at least maybe would they be willing to learn about the condition, you know, or just do anything they needed to do to help diagnose it. And then once she got diagnosed with celiac, then it was, okay, now who can help us actually figure this whole thing out, you know? Mm-hmm. And you know, I think it's just a matter of persistence, not giving up. And there's something incredibly isolating about having, you know, whether it's a rare disease or a chronic disease, because it's so socially isolating. Nobody can possibly, if they haven't had that experience, as much as they might care, they can't possibly understand what you're going through. And in my wife's condition, it was learning about something that she didn't even know that she had. In my situation, it was you know, living my entire life without being able to adequately explain to people what it was really like to have PKU, and just that inability sometimes to communicate it, because you get so used to whatever it is that you have that sometimes you just take it for granted.
That's true.
I think that's a really good point. Can I just touch on that quick? I think that so often that we, even in our own communities, online and social media, I think so often that we get to a point where our unnormal lives are so normal to us that sometimes we forget to actually explain and talk to one another, the ones that are actually diagnosed, and we have so much empathy towards each other, but instead of being angry at the people that are misinformed or uneducated, taking the time to just educate them and not being angry with them just because they mentioned, you know, you don't look sick, you don't look like you have an autoimmune disease, you don't look like you're throwing up every day. You know, just take the time to educate them, because that's what they truly need. And honestly, if I was in their shoes, I would want to know and ask. You know, I'm more than open with my disease, and people feel very comfortable asking me about my autoimmune disorders and whatnot. And they find actually that they have many loved ones that actually either suffer from IBD or dysautonomia, or something of the nature of just an immune disorder. I think it's really something that ties a lot of people together, and obviously a lot of people don't know that there's others diagnosed, you know, friends and family, whatnot. But just taking the time to educate others, you know, just instead of just judging them and saying they just don't understand, you just take that extra moment and just inform them. It's not their fault. They're a little bit misinformed and uneducated.
And that's one of the things that that we're trying to do with World Rare Disease Day this year. One of our goals is really to create awareness. And so there are campaigns like Wear That You Care, where we've been asking, you know, schools and businesses and other organizations, you know, maybe to wear jeans to represent rare and genetic diseases, and wear our little, I don't know if you can see, I have a little pin. But you know, campaigns like this, I think, are important to help people, you know, ask questions, feel that, you know, they can be open and reach out to understand. Because I think that one of the first things that we think of when someone asks us about our disease or says something like, "But you don't look sick," is to be angry, is to be frustrated, and to be insulted. And I think you make a great point, Kelly, that, you know, this is an opportunity to educate, and this is the time and place to do it. And so I too am learning, you know, a little bit every day the best way to do that. A long time ago, when I first started my blog, one of the first posts that I wrote was about this time that I parked in a handicapped parking spot, and some old man just like called me out. Like, he was just not having me parking there. And I, you know, it really destroyed me. It was really a very, like, terrible moment, and I was really upset about it. And you know, I had a conversation with my mom where she pretty much said that exact thing, was, you know, this is the time to educate. And so I went out and I made business cards that said basically, "Hey, I'm not a jerk. I have a heart condition, and you can learn more about it here. And, you know, even pretty people can be disease-ridden." So World Rare Disease Day, are you guys, Kevin, I know that you're obviously involved, and I just saw a video you did for it, so can you tell us a little bit about, like, what your plans are, what you're doing for World Rare Disease Day?
Yeah, so earlier this week I released a promo that I just put together to try to help promote Rare Disease Day, and I've been sharing that all week, and then going to keep sharing it on Friday and post a lot of my, the last year or two I've produced a handful of different films, either about PKU or rare diseases or newborn screening, and I'm just going to be tweeting all day and sharing all of that and Facebooking all day. And then also on Friday, for my PKU audience, I'm announcing new plans for my website, where I'm actually going to be able to start producing content on a more regular basis. I have a sponsor for my website now, and I'm going to be producing a video each month, and that's going to be more for people, raising awareness within the PK community itself, and helping educate people, because the treatment and the lifestyle of having PKU is incredibly complicated, like anything else. But and it's varied, because PKU it's kind of like a spectrum. There are certain people that have a severe low tolerance for protein, like 4 or 5 grams a day, which basically is a slice of bread.
Wow.
In my case, I was on the higher end of that, and there's newer medicine that I'm even responding to where I'm actually eating almost normal now. I still can't eat meat, but I'm able to experiment and eat a lot of other things that I wasn't able to growing up.
I'm so curious. What's your diet? Like, what can't you eat?
So before, I was eating about 20 grams of protein a day, which isn't a whole lot. It's a lot in comparison to other people who have PKU. But that was basically a vegetarian diet, and I would eat pasta and bread in moderation, but those have a decent amount of protein as well, so I had to eat that kind of in moderation. Now I can virtually eat that, I mean, almost unrestricted, that kind of food. I'm at 60 grams of protein now because it's new medicine I'm on. And so I'm able to eat almost everything except for any sort of meat products, and that's just because it's hard to quantify how much protein is really in that. I mean, I can do dairy and eggs and nuts, and I was 31 years old, and my wife had to teach me how to scramble an egg because I've never done it before, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going to be tweeting about that all day and sharing some of those videos on Friday.
That's great. I mean, I love to see your videos. They certainly help explain things, and I think it's a great format to do it in. You know, the spoon theory story was an excellent way of you know, linking people and explaining what your disease is. Your videos are great for linking and explaining what your disease is, and I think that Kelly, your blog, is also a fantastic way for people to understand what's happening. And so World Rare Disease Day is February 28th. It's coming up this Friday. And, you know, if you want to find more information, you can go to globalgenes.org. And, you know, you can see different ways that you can host events and celebrate and get denim ribbons. And so definitely check that out. And check us out on Lifetime TV on the Balancing Acts Behind the Mystery series, which will air at 7 a.m. On Lifetime TV on Friday morning. So I wanted to discuss another thing with you guys, whole body diagnostic centers. So I'm talking about Vanderbilt, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic. Have any of you guys ever been to those, to any of those?
I've been to the Mayo Clinic.
What was your experience like?
That's how I was first diagnosed, actually. So I went there with my mother, you know, on the plane, the big experience to go, and I kept joking it was like going to the Emerald City, like we were going to find the answer, to find the, you know, the great and powerful Oz. What was wrong with me? And I actually loved the experience because finally there was 5 different doctors that were all going to actually talk to each other. And instead of seeing, you know, a bone doctor and then a stomach doctor and then, you know, your rheumatologist, instead of seeing all these doctors separately at home and you acting as the vehicle for communication, the Mayo Clinic, you know, they're all working as a team to give you a diagnosis and to give you a clear path of treatment. And I was very happy to put myself through whatever they wanted to when I knew at the end of that week or however long you're there that you were going to have an answer. So for so many people that are having a difficult time being diagnosed, the concept of having the ability to see all your doctors, one-stop shopping, and the possibility of an answer, to me, was always worth it. It really was, if there's such a thing as a highlight of your, if there's a highlight of your medical experience, it actually was, because although I got officially diagnosed there, which you would assume would be the sad part, you know, the sad point in my illness experience, I finally knew who I was fighting.
Yeah.
It gave a name to who this beast was going to be, and if it's going to be me and Lupus in the ring, I'm going to win.
And I think I'm so glad that you had a great experience. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, you know, it would have been the sad part of the visit, but in actuality, people are on average struggling upwards of 8 years to find a diagnosis, with 3 misdiagnoses along the way. That's the average. So I totally understand the feeling of going there and just being like, this is it, this is, you know, and to finally get diagnosed when you have a disease for such a long time and just can't put your finger on it is a great feeling. And I think it's interesting because I'm involved with a lot of the you know, patient communities and support groups for POTS, and the major center that a lot of the patients talk about is Vanderbilt. A lot also go to Mayo and Cleveland Clinic, and there's actually been mixed reviews. I've been seeing that patients some of them have a great experience like you. They go in, they get diagnosed, they get treated, They know what they're dealing with, and they're out. But others have told me that the problem is that they go in there and they're poked at and they're prodded and they're seeing 20 different doctors and they're filling out forms and they're having blood taken, and all this data is collected on them, and that's used for the for the greater good. It's used for research. It's used to help pharmaceutical companies and patient registries, and it's great to have that data, but they don't really feel like anything is being done to help them individually. Especially when they go there.
I had that experience personally. I didn't go to Mayo or Cleveland or anything like that, but I had gone to a well-known hospital in Milwaukee when I was in my better years of college, I should say. When I was finally diagnosed, I was having dysautonomia symptoms and kind of got a clear diagnosis that I had small fiber neuropathy, which is pain sensations, and it's part of my autonomic nervous system and sympathetic nervous system, but I got that answer and I was not able to be treated because of my Crohn's and colitis. So I guess from that I've kind of had bitter feelings towards that whole experience. Through my new doctor, I'm hoping to have a team that he can finally diagnose me with something autoimmune that's going on, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or whether it's regular arthritis of the immune system that is most likely, but something's going on and I need to know. And just all of these years, because it's probably been about 5 or 6 years since I went through all of that testing, and I'm on a few medications for my fiber and arthritis right now, but I just have no answers, and things are continually getting worse. So I'm thinking that it's just going to have to be a team thing. But
are you freaked out that according to that statistic, you still have 2 more years left before you get a diagnosis?
It's been a good 5 or 6. I'm really hoping to not be one of those. It's really frustrating because you want to be able to just go to one doctor, one immunologist, and I know it's way too much to ask, but just be able to give me hope that I'm going to be able to find these answers within the next 6 months, within the next year. There's some days that I cannot wake up and I cannot move, and I know that something is definitely not right in my body, but there's nothing that can be confirmed yet besides the small fiber neuropathy and the fibro and, whatever nerve pain I might have. And it's a really unsettling feeling knowing that my blood pressure can drop. And a month and a half ago, I fell on the stairs and separated my shoulder. So it's just setbacks like that just kind of really take you off guard and really make you take things for granted, and you really take yourself seriously, and you know that you have to advocate for yourself. And that was kind of an eye-opening moment that I know that I do have to advocate for myself again, because I've been experiencing more symptoms like that again, and it's scary.
It is. And I think it's also scary that, we talk about the difficulty in being diagnosed, the difficulty in being misdiagnosed, going to these treatment centers and, having all this data collected, but nothing happening. And I think about it, and I think about, how, I don't know how many years ago, but many years ago, things like MS and fibromyalgia were things that would get you admitted to a mental hospital. This was just not something that was recognized, and we are living that. We are in a period right now where it seems that, people with dysautonomia and symptoms of the autonomic nervous system, it's just not understood well enough to really do anything about it.
Well, it's so difficult because, like Christine had said before, when you have one, you have more than one. It's never just alone. That's the really sad thing about autoimmune disease, and it really puts fear in you that what else is going on, I know that some of my symptoms are not related to my Crohn's or my colitis, and it just leaves you, there's a little bit of fear that, it keeps you motivated to keep advocating for yourself, but that fear just, kind of eats you alive some days.
I think we also have to take into account that you have your illness, but then you have the side effects of the medications that you're taking for your illness.
Absolutely.
So then you kind of don't know, what came first, the chicken or the egg. In my case, I was starting to get neuropathy of my hands and feet, and I didn't know, was the neuropathy from the lupus or was the neuropathy from some of the chemotherapeutics that I was on.
Right.
So, to be fair, you have your main diagnosis, and then you have the symptoms from the medications, and then we also have to factor in life. And I know that sounds so silly, but one of my best friend's Jen, she recently said to me when I had the flu, she jokingly said, what do you think, you're so special because you have lupus? You have the flu. Like, you know, you're allowed to be regular sick too. Except in our case, of course, you know, the next person will feel better in 2 weeks. And in my case, I might have the flu for 6 weeks. So it's definitely worse. But I think that we're juggling a few things here. We're juggling our diagnosis. We're juggling the side effects of our medications. We're juggling what could just happen to us in an average life, a cold, a broken arm, you know, like the everyday things. And then really, if we're going to cut to the meat of the matter here, you know, depression or anxiety, you know, I think that is a realistic part of living with something chronic. There's no way you can tell me that being in maybe constant pain or a constant level of health consciousness and not have stress, anxiety, or some level of depression from it. So I do think it's juggling all of those aspects.
Now, I want to ask you guys, have you ever had, I know we've seen this a couple times in the POTS community, and I've personally had some experience with it. You know, I feel like there is a kind of doctor that will take advantage of the confusion and, you know, pull out the stops to try and get you to, you know, come to a center or do a treatment, and they're scam artists. We had a situation in one of the POTS support groups where someone came in and was like, you know, I'm a doctor and I'm going to do, I have a special brain surgery that we do, and I'll give you 10% off because you're in this group. And it's like, whoa, not where I want to get my medical, like, plan from. But, and I've also been to, you know, specialists who, you know, that I traveled across the country for, that I had an experience where, you know, it ended up being a more of like a deep relaxation treatment instead of a medical treatment that they were, you know, prescribing it as, which was hugely disappointing, and I was very misinformed, and I felt very, like, cheated. Have there been experiences for you guys where you've gone, where you've heard of, you know, miracle treatments, and you've gone and you put yourself out there and they just turned out to be bull?
I haven't been scammed by any doctors, but I just find it humorous when people tell me that my Crohn's will be cured if I eat just the weirdest stuff. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard it all, but it's just, it's comical to me now. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I just got to brush it off because every day I hear something else, like just the funniest, grossest stuff. Well, my aunt's grandma's dog, cousin, you know, whatnot. I mean, everyone's heard it, but I have, thank God, never been scammed by any doctors.
Good. What about you, Christine?
Thankfully, I haven't been scammed by doctors, but definitely I've been to, like, those nutrition centers where, you know, if you take these vitamin packs, or if you drink these magical milkshakes and whatever it might be, I definitely feel that there is pressure to buy, or the promise of a cure, where I just don't know that promise was the word that they should have used. And
I know when people are telling you to take magical milkshakes that you're like, I don't have a spoon for that.
I can't drink milk.
And I do also love, like you're saying, Kelly, I think we have to turn it around. In the beginning, when I was first diagnosed, my grandmother used to cut out articles about, you know, eat 12 almonds and, you know, if you do this, or certain prayers, you know, if you pray hard enough, and a specific prayer. And at first, you know, you're a teenager in my case, but at first you get angry, like, okay, I'm not going to eat the 12 almonds and stand on my head. Like this is not going to cure lupus, or else we'd all be upside down. Let's face facts. But I think that I had to just take a deep breath and sit back and realize that they don't know, and it's coming from a place of love. And if they're looking through a magazine and something does say it could help, that's their version of trying to help, because they don't know the inside of our lives. So even though it might be frustrating, because I still do get those emails about, you know, aspartame and, you know, or whatever it might be. And what I try to do is see twofold. I try to look for if there is any truth in it, even if there's an inch of truth in it, hey, I'll take an inch. So if there's an inch of good, I try to take it. But I also just try to take it as that person was thinking of me and that person cares about me, even if they were trying to get me to take the magic milkshake.
Right. And what about you, Kevin? Has this happened to you at all? I mean, I don't imagine that people generally say, well, I have a cure for PKU. But
no, you know, PKU treatment is so specialized that, I mean, it's kind of like a blessing and a curse. The curse is, you know, that not many people know about PKU. The blessing is because not many people know about PKU, there's nobody out there trying to scam people with PKU, because the way that it's kind of like it's a very finely tuned process that when a child is screened at birth, and if they are detected to have PKU, then they get a phone call, and there's a follow-up team that calls them and tells them, you know, tells the person, hey, your child has PKU, and then they direct them on the next steps. And so from that point, they get connected with a medical, you know, metabolic doctor and a dietitian that child will be with for the rest of their life. And so the treatment's so specialized that there's really not all of the information is coming from people who are very, very, very you know, specialized in what they do. So we haven't fortunately had to worry about anything like that, to my knowledge.
Good. So I wanted to, we had a question from someone's following along on Twitter, and that was, hold on, I have it right here. So how can we sustain our work as health activists? Christine, you've had a long career of this, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you think?
Oh man, you just made me feel old. Wait a minute. Well, I feel like I was a patient advocate before that word existed. I don't know that we called it patient advocacy. I just knew that I was trying to spread the word about lupus, and I was trying to help people. I don't know, you know, the internet had kind of just started, and Facebook was new, and Twitter was new. So I'm definitely one of the first, one of the first people out there, the pioneers of blogging about health issues. And on one hand, that's, you know, I don't know, kind of an honor. I guess that does make me the old lady of the group as far as years blogging, you know. Since 2003 sounds like a very, very long time ago, 2001 even.
It was 11.
Yeah, you know, it does feel like a very long time, but this is what I love to do. This is my passion. I truly believe this is what God put me on the earth to do. And don't get me wrong, I think burnout is something that can happen. And I think burnout can happen whether it's because of our own illness, that we're not feeling well, or we're having our own flare-ups. And we need to learn to take care of ourselves as patient advocates. I really joke with my Spoonie family online. Sometimes I'll write, I think I need to reread that spoon theory for myself.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of burnout for your own health, but then the idea of burnout what if you don't have anything to blog about? I'd rather blog quality information than what I ate for breakfast that day. I'd rather promote you, Ilana, because you might be doing something great, than just talk about, you know, my outfit for the day if I'm not doing something important. So I do think that as a community, if we learn to help each other and promote each other, that's another way of stopping burnout creatively, because I think that then we're cheerleaders for each other. You know, you're doing a race
on other patients. Yeah, I know, Kevin, you had your film, and then you had a film you recently did on a child, right?
Yeah. So I had my one film that I did was about me, but then I did I produced a short film in conjunction with the National PKU Alliance, which is kind of like the largest, you know, in America, it's the largest nonprofit for PKU, and it's kind of like a hub where a lot of information travels through. And I worked with them to produce this film about a girl named Tia who lives in the Washington, D.C. area, and there was a benefit they had up there in D.C. and was able to kind of tell a story of what it's like for her to have a disease, another child about her age to have a disease, but also someone else who's in his 30s but was off diet for a long time. Because I didn't say this before, but the consequences of not being diagnosed with PKU is immediately at birth is lifelong institutionalization and severe mental delay and severe developmental delay. And so even as one grows up, if they stray from the diet, they can experience negative consequences. So I produced a film that kind of told both sides to the story. Here's somebody doing well, here's somebody doing not so well. Excuse me.
Well, I think that's great. And then, Katie, did you want to jump in a little bit? What do you think would help us stay active as activists?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to Christine, because I guess back in college when I had first kind of acquainted myself with being a spoonie myself, I think that was one of my first honest realizations of acceptance for me. And it took a long time for me. I mean, I was 16, 17 when I was first hospitalized and actually given a diagnosis, and then another hard hit with another diagnosis of colitis under the same IBD umbrella. So it was really hard, being an active teen and then being 21 and not being able to go drinking and have a wild life with my friends. Not that I wanted to. Trust me, I like sitting home and just drinking a cup of tea and just sitting at home and relaxing. But it was a struggle. It really was, and it took a long time for me to accept the life that I have now. But living a life of acceptance is so much easier than living in denial for all of those years. Life has been so much better for me. My quality of life and my positive attitude. Anybody that you ask, I have my crabby days. I have my really bad days that I'm barely able to get out of bed, but I still go to work, and still I have a smile on my face because I woke up today, and there's other people that didn't get a chance to wake up today, and I'm living this, and I can spread this message through my blog, through my Twitter, through coworkers who have come up to me and just said, I've learned to accept some illnesses that I have for myself, and I'm being more open about it. And I've received letters from Japan this week, England, and just so many different countries, and it's such a settling, accepting feeling now that I have, just in 2 short months, over 500 or 600 followers on my different social networks. And I feel honored that just Christine's theory had hit me so much that much acceptance hit me that quickly, and I was actually able to start finally loving myself again, because I really don't think that I had that type of self-love before I was actually diagnosed. So it was really, really very awesome for me to be able to read that.
I need to say that I am completely humbled, and I'm just grateful I participated in this, because I think that sometimes, you could put yourself out there, but you don't know if anyone's listening, or you don't know if you're really making a difference. And just hearing from you, Kelly and Ilana, and just that I made any difference, or that you even read my stuff or anything, is really making me emotional. I'm very, very touched.
Acceptance is very, very hard, and I think through the different social media outlets, I made my own page, and if that affects one person and they make their own social media, that's awesome. These rare diseases that we have, and these Google Hangouts that we're doing, and just the WEGO Health community in general, we're all communicating with each other across the world, and we're actually learning things about each other's disease that, Kevin, I had no idea about PKU until I actually researched it last week, and it's just amazing the struggles that we all go through, that we have so much in common and so much to relate to, that there's others struggling just like us. Just because we may not know about it, it's more openly accepted to talk about it now, and that's our responsibility as being activists and being advocates, not only to ourselves but to the other people that are struggling with these diseases as well.
One thing
I'm gonna have to cut you guys a little bit because we're running out of time here. Sorry, but I just wanted to say thank you all for coming, and that I think what makes a difference is that for the three of you that I know, and I've been following you and your stories, is that you're genuine and you really tell it like it is, and that's what people need to hear. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Danielle.
No, I mean, as Kelly and Christine, that interaction was just amazing. And this whole, this is why I work at WEGO Health and why we all work here. And I think to bring it back home is that everyone's dealing with something. We might not be dealing with rare diseases in our immediate lives or our extended friends and family. We all know what it's like to feel ostracized and marginalized. And I want to, all of us here at WEGO Health want to give you all a voice and make sure you can connect with each other. And maybe it's somebody you've never spoken to in Japan or England, Kelly, like when you got letters this week, and they know that there's someone else like them out there. And I mean, that's why we do it, and it's just amazing. And I'm in awe of all of you. And Ilana, amazing job as host. And thank you, Kevin, Kelly, and Christine. And I know John's gonna take this YouTube video and make it look even jazzier and send it all out. And thanks to everyone who retweeted and shared on Facebook and all of that. And if you enjoyed this and you have comments or questions, you want to know other ways you can get in contact with us and work with us, we have many different platforms to connect with our health activists and patient community. You can reach me, Danielle Schroth, via community@wegohealth.com, or find us online because we're all over the place. So thanks again, Ilana. I hope you have a great rest of the week, everyone. Go to bed. I know we're all on the East Coast except for Kelly. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.